to go ahead and get started. I am Tracy Wilson with Tourcy, Tours by Tracy. And as I was discussing, I provide the best and guided group air tours all around the world. So I'm your local connection between the community in the tri-state area and to the rest of the world. And in this case, we are focusing on New England and Cape Cod autumn foliage in October of 2021. And I'm going to just do a brief introduction, and then I'm going to turn it over to Matt, who's with Mayflower Cruises and Tours, who'll really delve into the itinerary, the travel protection, Mayflower Cruises and Tours, what they're about, and about our great partnership and why we work so well together. So there are quite a few reasons why I'm really excited about this particular tour. One is, in the past, I've promoted autumn foliage tours, and then I've also promoted separately like the Islands of New England tours. And this is a perfect combination of both of those. You're going to see the autumn foliage in October. You're going to take a scenic railway through all of that foliage, a river cruise through all of that foliage, but at the same time, you're going to get that beach experience. Accommodations are beachfront. So it's really a perfect combination. The other reason I'm excited is, as you know, there's a lot of pent up demand for travel, and we're getting to that point where we're looking forward and we're making plans right now so that we'll be ready when it's time to go. And we're looking forward to October next fall of 2021. With that being said, I have offered this tour previously. We have a date, October 7th through the 14th, and that sold out. So fortunately, I was able to work with Mayflower to get an additional tour date. So the other tour date was wildly popular. We have a new tour date. This one is October 10th through the 17th, as I mentioned. And probably one of the most exciting things that I'm super grateful for is the free air offer through January 31st. So what that means is, if you book by January 31st, the end of this month, you'll get free air. And on this particular tour, that's about a $600 to $800 saving per person. So quite substantial. And that's so exciting, and really a great boost to travel again in the fall. So I am now going to turn it over for all of the beautiful pictures and the itinerary and all those great details, the reason that you're here. So Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you to just take us on this wonderful trip.
Thank you, Tracy. Hi, everybody. As Tracy mentioned, my name is Matt. I represent Mayflower Cruises and Tours. So thank you for joining us today. We are excited to look into the future. I know our first priority is to make sure everyone is healthy and safe and doing okay. That's most important. But as we kind of get through everything that's going on, we're excited to look at the future travel. So thank you to Tracy. Thank you to Tourcy for our partnership. You know, Tracy, those of you who have traveled with Tracy, you know how much she does for you, and how she really goes above and beyond. And she does that with us as well. So thank you to Tracy. We appreciate everything. So I'm just going to take you through the New England trip. I'll give you a quick, brief introduction to Mayflower if you haven't traveled with Mayflower, just so you kind of have an idea of who we are. But I like to look at us as really a three-headed monster, because you've got Tracy doing, you know, all the work for you, and she does all that. But we put together the package at Mayflower. We do the airfare, the whole tour. We provide the package, and then the third part is you, the traveler. So we're excited as we look ahead into travel. Now looking ahead to October of this year seems like a long ways away, but it's going to come quick. So we like to plan early. I know Tracy has some good things for 2022, and probably even starting to think about 2023. So very excited. You'll be able to see the screen, the pictures here, and I think I'm actually going to try to take my video off so it doesn't block anything. But you'll be able to see the pictures. If you have any questions, you can scroll up or hold your mouse over the top or bottom portion, and there is a Q&A portion where you can type in any questions that you might have. So if anything comes up, we'll go over the questions at the end. And then, of course, if you have any other questions, we can unmute everybody and get you all the information. But I just want to take you through some slides real quick. You should be able to see on the screen. We'll go through, again, a quick history, and then we'll go through the day by day of the trip. So we should only take about 4 hours, and then we'll be good. Okay, just making sure you're awake. We won't keep you that long. But Mayflower Cruises and Tours, I'm going to be pretty quick on this slide because I don't want to bore everyone to death here, but I just want to go over a little bit about us as a company. So we are a 42-year-old tour company based out of Chicago. So we've been doing this for a while. We put together itineraries to all 7 continents. We've got cruises, land tours, but we really pride ourselves on what we put together in the package. So that's everything. Tracy talked about the airfare. So that's part of the transportation. This is a land tour. So we're going to get you into Boston. We'll pick you up at the hotel or pick you up at the airport and get you to the hotel. That transportation's included. And then once we get on the itinerary, we're going to provide the motor coach, and your tour manager will be with you from start to finish. You'll have included admission to different things. You'll have your city tours. We'll show you all of that. But I think it's very important to kind of look at everything that's included. So we talked about free airfare. That's a huge deal for us. One of the questions you might have is, what's the catch? Nothing's free in life. There really is no catch. You just have to book by the end of January. So this is a promotion that we do where we do cover the air portion. And that is, as she mentioned, $600 to $800 package right now, especially with the airlines reducing schedules and things getting tighter. So that's all included. If you put your deposit in, we'll get you all of that information. Again, we include the transportation from the airport to the hotel and vice versa. All your baggage handling is part of the tour. Your tour manager will be there from start to finish. We also have different historians and local guides that you'll meet along the way. Dining experiences, we try to make those a little bit different, unique to the destination. Specifically in New England, they kind of have their own cuisine at times, so we'll dive into that. And then the hotels are all included. So it's a fairly all-inclusive package. You'll still have some free time. And that's important to note as well, because it's a trip that moves around quite a bit, but at the end of the day, there are going to be some time for shopping, or maybe to go off on your own a little bit, relax a little bit. So that's what we do at Mayflower. That's my quick, boring introduction. We've been doing this for 42 years. We're based out of Chicago. We have over 100 different itineraries now. So thank you to Tracy for putting this out there. And as she mentioned, this is a second departure that was added. So as we look ahead and get excited for the future of travel, it's very exciting to see that the demand is up for this. So let's just go through the full itinerary and kind of give you an idea of what you'll see. So this, of course, is the New England and Cape Cod Autumn Foliage Tour. So this is the second departure that was added, which is departing October 10th. You'll be able to see the map here on the next screen and kind of get a brief overview of the trip. There's a lot packed in there. It's New England. It's fall foliage time. This is a very popular time. If you've been there before, or if this is your first time, there's always something new to see. So so much about this trip that I love, because it really covers everything. You're going to get the history. You're going to get the mansions, the architecture, all of the stories, but it all ties in with the scenery. And not to mention, you're getting into 5 different states. So here's the map. We're going to start and end in Boston. So it's a great place to start to get into Boston. Again, we'll get you from the airport to the hotel. You don't have to get a taxi or Uber or whatever everybody does these days. But we'll spend the first night in Boston. And then again, we're moving around a little bit, but it really is a nice pacing with a couple of 2-night hotel stays mixed in there. So we'll start in Boston. We'll do the full city tour, the history, your welcome dinner, and then we're off and running. We'll head to the Cape for a couple of nights. We'll take one of the day trips is a ferry out to Martha's Vineyard. You get into Edgartown and learn about the history there. And then we'll spend 2 nights on the Cape, a beautiful resort. You'll have a chance to relax a little bit as well with all of the included day tours and excursions. And then we'll flip around and head up north. We'll head towards into Rhode Island, stop in Newport. Obviously, Rhode Island, it's a pretty small state, so you'll get through Rhode Island pretty quick. But then we'll spend a night in Vermont. And that's actually where the colors really start to pop. So this being the fall foliage time of year, once we get into kind of the back roads of Vermont and New Hampshire, you can see we'll spend one night in Vermont, and then we'll spend 2 nights in New Hampshire. You'll do the Cog Railway, you'll do the Winnipesaukee Cruise. There's lots of scenic excursions, the cute little mountain towns, and really that quintessential New England. And that's really where the colors really start to hit, and it's fantastic. I love showing off the pictures that are coming up. And then you'll end up the trip in the trip in Maine and have a chance to see Kennebunkport and the lighthouses, and then we'll make our way down part in Boston. So before we get into the day-to-day, I'm going to show you pictures of different things you'll see. If I go too fast or if you have any further questions, I know Tracy has the full flyer, the whole day-to-day and all of the information. So our goal is not to keep everyone here for those 4 hours, but we'll be able to get you all the information, and we have the full flyers, the online brochures, and again, Tracy knows how to track us down. So if you have any questions, we'll tag team it together and get you all the information you need. But that is the map of New England. It's an 8-day trip. About half of your meals are included, so you can kind of see there are some free meals, which is great when you're traveling on a tour. Now, before I get going here, I'm going to answer probably some questions that everybody has, and that is about what does it look like for procedures and coach size and masks and sanitizing. Right now things are changing on a daily basis. We're starting to get a pretty clear idea of what things will look like in the future. So there will be information, more detailed, more concrete information in terms of, are we going to be splitting the coaches up so everyone can space out a little bit? A typical Mayflower tour is about 50 passengers. So depending on how many Tracy has go, there may be other groups from around. But we'll have all that information. I know our number one priority is to keep everyone safe and healthy. So, probably some screenings or possible restrictions on coach size. As of right now, looking into the future, everything's looking, by the time we get to October, everything's looking pretty much back to normal. But we will get all of that to you. So I wanted to just address that real quick because they don't have any full information. It changes daily. We don't even know what the airlines might require. We know what they're doing now, but that could change. But our number one priority is to keep everyone safe and healthy, and our travelers and our staff. So we'll make sure we have all the information, but we're obviously staying in the United States here, and we're excited to look ahead. So let's go through day to day. As I mentioned, we'll start the tour in Boston. Great place to start, obviously a larger city. If you've been to Boston, there's so much there with the history, the architecture. Our hotel is very centrally located. So we're going to get into Boston. You'll have some free time kind of that first day. No, we're not going too far from where you are, but we always like to give you that first kind of half day to get used to a little bit of time change, maybe a little bit of jet lag, get your bearings straight. But we'll start in Boston. We'll have a welcome dinner to kick things off. You'll meet your tour manager, meet your fellow travelers, and have a chance to get ready to get off and running the next day. Because the next day is when we head out. We'll head to the Cape, but we will do a full comprehensive tour of Boston, which is so much here, so much history. We'll spend a good amount of time kind of following the Freedom Trail. Now, the Freedom Trail is a 2.5-mile path, which has 16 locations that are very significant to the U.S. history. We're not going to walk the whole trail or really spend a lot of time, but we will make some stops to get on and off and see some of those highlights as well. But when you talk about American history in Boston and learning about the development and those stories, it really starts with the Freedom Trail. So we'll go through. You'll meet some local guides and historians. Again, your tour manager will be with you from start to finish, but we'll see the Public Garden, which is the large park right in the heart of Boston. You really can't beat it with the city as the backdrop and the beautiful garden with the statues and the memorials. This was the first botanical garden recognized in America. So very important there, but it's just absolutely gorgeous and kind of starts your journey in Boston of learning the history. So again, it's there's some walking. We're not going to try to run any marathons or try to win any races, but there is some a chance for you to get off and tour, meet some local historians. So you'll have a very comprehensive history tour of Boston and all of the old historic buildings. We'll see the Old North Church, the famous Paul Revere line, the "Oneth by land, twoeth by sea," warning the British were coming. So much important areas here on the Freedom Trail. The architecture is fantastic. They really preserve these buildings, and it really ties into just the culture of Boston. You'll see Faneuil Hall, which is a very popular marketplace. This is where we'll have a little bit of free time. There's a lot of unique vendors and food stops here, but just all of the statues and the old structures, and your tour guide will take you through. And we do use the headsets, the personal listening devices on this tour as well. So when you're thinking about the tours of Boston specifically on this tour, there's maybe some crowded areas or it's a bigger area to cover. We do have the personal listening devices, so it makes it a little bit easier. And also, we talk about if there's spacing involved, you have your listening device as well. We are using those on the domestic. So Boston, we'll spend a good half day kind of getting to know Boston. Great place to start. You'll have, again, some free time the night before, and we include dinner that first night and breakfast before we head off. But that's a full day of Boston. You will have some free time to explore a little bit on your own as well, and maybe do some shopping. Those vendors are fun to shop at in Boston. So from there, we head south. We'll head towards the Cape. We will stop in Plymouth or see the Plymouth Rock, where the famous Pilgrims landed in 1620. You'll probably be surprised at the size of the rock, as there are just parts of it left since it was moved. But learn about the Pilgrims coming over on the Mayflower. I think I joked with Tracy earlier at one point where I should probably dress up as a pilgrim for these presentations since we are Mayflower. But it's just fun to get into that history, to actually see these things that we learn and know about. And we'll spend some time in Plymouth and drive down to the Cape. And we'll spend 2 nights on the Cape, so beautiful resort. The dinner that we include on the Cape is a traditional New England lobster bake. So that's fantastic, just to learn about just the history and how important lobster is to the economy. So you'll have the fresh catch of the day, and of course indulge in hopefully too much lobster to really get into that New England culture. If you do not partake and are not interested in eating lobster, there are other options, but this is a traditional lobster bake included. But 2 nights on the Cape, we will do some excursions from there. We'll take a ferry to Martha's Vineyard. You'll have a chance to learn about the history and all of the royalty and celebrities and the gardens on Martha's Vineyard. It's just gorgeous, but we include the admission to the ferry. That's part of the tour. You'll jump on the ferry and spend a good half day on beautiful Martha's Vineyard, just getting the stories, seeing the shoreline and the history. Here's Jay's Head Point, the lighthouses along the shoreline. You'll get some of the stories that tie into the history. And Martha's Vineyard, we'll visit Edgartown, which was a colony that started on Martha's Vineyard. It was a whaling point, so a lot of ships from around the world would dock here back in time, and it's really well preserved. You've got kind of these gingerbread cottages that dot the streets of Edgartown, and all of the historical houses and buildings. It's really a fun walking tour to really step back in time and get that history. So that's Martha's Vineyard. A couple nights on the Cape. From there, we'll head towards Newport. So we'll spend a day in a good city tour of Newport, Rhode Island. Very beautiful. That yacht-filled harbor has some of those Gilded Age mansions, which we'll step into. But just walking around Newport and the historical buildings, in the history, you can see the gorgeous right along the water there. But we will visit one of the most famous Gilded Age mansion, and that is the Breakers Mansion. So you'll tour inside the Breakers Mansion. You'll learn about the significant names that own these mansions. But going inside the Breakers, it's pretty phenomenal, and just seeing the grounds around the Breakers and learning the history. I mean, a lot of these mansions were actually vacation homes to the Vanderbilts and some of those big names from from our past. But the Breakers Mansion itself, it was built in 1893 for $7 million. So you think about what that would cost today. It's about $150 million investment today. So it's really just fun to learn about that. Of course, seeing the breakers up close and going inside. But as you go along the avenue where there's all of the other mansions, it's really, really fun to look at. So we'll spend the day, a half day in Newport, and go through the mansion, and then we'll make our way up north into Vermont. And that's when really the colors really start to pop, because we'll spend 3 nights between Vermont and New Hampshire. But this is when you get kind of into that New England backroads feel. And that's my favorite. That's where the colors pop. You've got these cute little villages and, all the white steepled churches with the background of the colors. So, we'll go through some of the little towns. You'll make some stops, but you'll see Newfane, a very famous town in Vermont, has a lot of history with the French and Indian War. So you start to get the even different types of history once you get outside of Massachusetts and Rhode Island. But absolutely gorgeous. Grafton, Vermont, another small town. Those white churches surrounded by the colors. Not a ton of color in this picture, but as you're going through this time of year, you'll see it all in the background. So that's really, the Vermont portion is really just the back roads and going through some of these towns with your guides to learn the history. You'll stop at the Vermont Country Store, which is famous for all the little items and really kind of sets the stage for some of the little general stores you'll see on the back roads of New England. It really just speaks New England. So going in the Vermont store, there's all the little handcrafted items, and you'll meet some of the locals and tour around the villages. So very important, very fun. But I love these pictures, colors. It's a foliage tour, so we're gonna do some scenic routes, and we've got a cruise and a train ride coming up here on this trip. But Woodstock is very important to the dairy farm life. So you get a chance to step back and learn about the history of dairy farming in New England, and then see some of those Queen Anne style mansions, different architecture and how it ties into the different settlers. Stuff. Moving right along on these sort of nature and scenic trips. Again, we're kind of in the back roads part of New England, but we'll visit Peachy Gorge State Park, which is a 165-foot gorge. You've got the beautiful scenery of the water. You'll go across the Franconia Notch, which is a mountain pass from the Flume Gorge to Echo Lake. You may have heard of the literature, the Great Stone Face. So a lot of the famous literature of our history was actually based around these mountains and these scenic passes. But it's the lakes, it's the traveling through, seeing the scenery. You'll have a chance to get out, get the pictures, visit those general stores. That to me is New England and the back roads. In New Hampshire, we will spend a couple of nights and do these excursions out. We've included a trip to the top of Mount Washington on the Cog Railway. The Cog Railway is a fascinating experience. This is currently the only operating Cog Railway in our country right now. The other would be where I live in the Denver area. Pikes Peak is another Cog Railway, but it is currently being renovated. So Mount Washington will take the Cog Railway up to the top of the mountain. It's the highest point in New England. And if you've never been on a cog railway, they were designed for the mining industry and getting up to these high elevations. So it's kind of it's a slower trip straight up to the top. The elevation isn't horrible, so you don't have to worry too much, but definitely drink a lot of water. But just the experience, it's kind of a gear system that pulls the train up the mountain. So very specifically designed. And for me, the scenery is great, but just learning how these trains work and how they were built and what they were important for is also fascinating. So we've included that. We'll do a train trip to the top of Mount Washington. And then again, the next day, we'll get a chance to tour around New Hampshire and get those small villages. You'll visit North Conway. We'll do the Kakemangus Scenic Byway, which is a 56-mile stretch from the heart, right through the heart of the scenic mountains with colors. We got to get better colored pictures here on a foliage trip. You can imagine when the colors are really popping as you go through the stretch and you have a chance to relax kind of in between some of the guided experiences. But I love these pictures. Here's the white mountains you'll go through. These are the forests and the meadows. You'll learn about some of the logging roads and the history behind that as well. And then also, I mentioned we do the train ride. We also do a cruise on Lake Winnipesaukee. So this is included. Lake Winnipesaukee is the most important lake in the region for many regions, but absolutely gorgeous. You'll have a chance to cruise around on the MS Mount Washington. They cruise around the lake. It's a narrated tour, very comfortable, very scenic, very unique experience to cruise the lake and just learn about history and the importance of the beautiful scenery. So Lake Winnipesaukee. From there, we will get to our 5th state on the trip, which is Maine. You'll head into to Kennebunkport, and you'll spend the night in the area doing your excursions and tours around Kennebunkport in Maine. But this is really that rocky coastline, a lot of lighthouses. I love lighthouses. If anybody ever wants to talk lighthouses, this area is known for Goat Island, Nubble Lighthouse, the Portland Head Lighthouse. Just the stories and the uniqueness of the lighthouses is what fascinates me. So that will come to life as you tour around the coast of Maine and what each lighthouse is very unique for and what it was used for, with the stories and the legends. So it's fascinating to me. We won't get too much into lighthouses, but Kennebunkport in this area is known for some of the famous homes of former presidents and celebrities and beautiful scenery. So we'll end up in Kennebunkport, and then from there, we'll spend a night in the area. Again, you'll have some free time, and then the next day, we will head back to Boston as we end the tour. So I know I kind of flew through that, but again, Tracy has all of the brochures with the full day-to-day, and we can certainly get you more information. The goal is to just highlight what you'll see. Again, this trip departs October 10th of this year. And you've got your free airfare until January 31st. So put your deposit in. It's pretty simple. It's just a $200 deposit to lock in your trip, $200 per person. And then again, if you get that deposit in by January 31st, the airfare is taken care of. So again, that includes all your hotels, about half your meals, your sightseeing, your ferry rides, your cruise rides, everything that you see on the itinerary, and all your taxes, fees. Now we do offer our Traveler's Protection Plan insurance. So this is in addition to the deposit, but this is a $200 per person on this trip. So your insurance plan, obviously we like to talk about it's better to have the insurance and not need it than to need it and you don't have it. But this insurance is going to protect you on both sides of the trip. So before you depart, if you have the insurance and you need to cancel for any reason, we will fully refund everything minus the insurance. But most importantly, it protects you once you're on the trip. So if something should happen, trip cancellation, trip interruption, trip delay, baggage lost, theft, all those negative things that we don't want to think about. But if you have the insurance, the protection plan, you will be protected with any of those things that might happen on tour. I know we don't like to think about it, but if someone becomes ill or you get injured, things that are very real, this covers the medical, this covers all sorts of things. So we have more details on that if you need as we go. We work with the third-party insurance, so Tracy, Tourcy'S, and Mayflower are not obligated to get too detailed in what's protected by law, but we can get you the full coverages and all that information. So that is on top of the deposit. So if you want the Traveler's Protection Plan, it's just an extra $200 per person. And again, that covers your cancellation. So hopefully that kind of sheds light on everything. I appreciate everybody's time. I'll turn it back to Tracy if you have anything to add. If I missed anything, I apologize for that weird box that kept showing up. We could not figure out how to get that away. But hopefully that brings it to light. I just appreciate you taking the time to look at Tracy's trips that she has. And again, as we get excited for the future of travel, we're ready to dream about where we're going to go tomorrow.
All right, thank you, Matt. Those pictures are amazing. Makes me want to be there right now. Fast forward, do some time traveling. So I know we covered a lot of information today. Brief overview of the itinerary. I will be sending all of you a copy of the itinerary the reservation form. You'll get a recording of this so that you can rewatch it if you'd like, or you can send it to friends and families. As mentioned with the airfare, it's free from any gateway. So if you have friends or family in another area, that free airfare applies to them if they apply by the end of this month, January 31st. So thank you once again. Do we have any questions right now before we say goodbye?
They're being shy, Tracy.
I guess so. They'll just
And I
wait
think-
for all this great information by email. Again, I'll be sending you information that will have my contact details. Tourcy20.com is my website. Tourcy20@gmail is my email. But I will be reaching out to each of you to provide you with that information and answer any questions you may have. So thank you all, and you have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye.